Okay.
Scavenger hunts and backtracking. Two things few people relate to the Sonic the Hedgehog series, yet for a certain time, every game had it to a degree. The most commonly known of this gameplay style comes from the Knuckles and Rouge radar-based stages in Sonic Adventure 1 and Sonic Adventure 2. There's a lot of people who like to point at these as the absolute worst of the adventure games, especially with Adventure 2 since SA1 had Big the Cat and Amy Rose to compete with.
I must say Froggy!
And getting the giant beeping elephant out of the room right now, discussion of the subject almost consistently leads to dismissing the SA2 stages as bad because of the GIMP radar. And while I do agree that this radar is not ideal in any way, I think people use this to bury the rest of the possible discussion. So today I want to discuss everything about the Knuckles campaign in SA1 and the Knuckles and Rouge stages from SA2. Now the first thing to keep in mind with both of these games, which changes everything between the two, is their general structure. SA1 has you travel through some small or medium-sized hub worlds to find the action stage, boss, cutscene, or minigame that you're supposed to go to next, while SA2 just takes you straight to the next thing like a vast majority of Sonic games do. Focusing in on SA1, the game somewhat treats the action stage as your reward for doing everything else. Finished a cutscene where you chased after a
Big drip, great!
now you can go fast on a beach. I want to say this was a purposeful design choice to wave fun stages in your face, but it was more than likely just a leftover from when the game was meant to be an RPG, or it was a follower of the 3D platformer trend of having hub worlds, like Mario 64 or Gex 2. I mainly say that because of the following title's abandonment of hub worlds, but let's stay on track. Knuckles in SA1 has a poorly spread ratio of action stages to everything else. Keeping in mind, I know both Sonic Adventure games like the back of my hand. In my recording session to get footage, I spent 10 of my 50-minute playthrough of Knuckles' campaign in action stages, and 4 of those 10 were in Red Mountain, which happens to be the largest and my favorite of Knuckles' stages in SA1. Red Mountain is one of the few points in SA1 that lets you achieve the full freedom you should feel when gliding around as Knuckles. Skydeck is overwhelmingly close, but the stage has a gimmick where you shift the weight distribution of the ship, which has the disadvantage of causing Knuckles to hit the floor faster than usual, and we'll get to it when we get to it. There are some points in the hub worlds where you can fly far, but what you find isn't as interesting as what's in Red Mountain. And now I'm going to go into the main meat of this video, and that's when I explain every stage in Hub World in SA1, because I decided this will be another big bitch video. So first is the Station Square Hub World. Despite his opening cutscene starting in the Mystic Ruins, but we can ignore that for today. First thing to get straight, I don't really like hub worlds in Sonic games. I think they detract more than they do add, but if they are in the game, I'm fine with them being the size of Station Square. That being said, Station Square doesn't have much to offer for Knuckles. All the secrets to find are his Sonic tails are big, there's not many walls to climb, and there's no tall points to jump off of to glide. To be clear, I like Station Square, but since I'm about to compare it to everything else, I've got to say what it is. Getting into Speed Highway, we immediately start from a high spot. This gives the player a greater chance to discover gliding on their own if they haven't done so by this point, and since the buildings are close together, it'll be almost impossible to not discover climbing early on. As a first level, it's great, but a few small critiques would be in how the stage layout is a little too windy to memorize quickly, and a little on the short side. The section in Knuckles' story also feels a little bit forced when you play through it as Sonic, but that's a greater issue in SA1 that'll be a bit more relevant later. Our second stage is Casinopolis. Our second stage is Casinopolis. Our second stage is Casinopolis. Our second stage is, you know what, fuck it, which probably has my favorite theming of the Knuckles stages. Unlike Speed Highway, digesting the stage layout is really simple because of its circular design. How easy a stage is to memorize is the key element for the quality of most stages, and we'll be dissecting that during the course of this video. Knuckles' version of Casinopolis' biggest draw is how Knuckles is free to reach the second story of the building that was teased during Sonic's story. It's really fun to go through, but they should have found a way to make it a bit larger. It's really not all that hard to beat this stage in under a minute, which on its own might be fine enough, but when the next stage is 10 to 15 minutes away because of cutscenes, hub world shenanigans, and a Chaos 2 boss fight, it's kind of annoying. And now, similar to the game, I'm gonna postpone talking about the next stage by discussing Mystic Ruins, which isn't too bad. This is when my general distaste for hub world and Sonic games kicks in, but exploring it as Knuckles isn't too dreadful. It's more manageable than with Sonic, Big, and Amy, but not as seamless as with Tails. You can skip most of this forest section on repeated visits, but there is a part where you have to carry these stones, so you still have to learn the layout. Getting into Red Mountain, which I touched on earlier, we have nearly everything I'd want from a treasure hunting stage. Room to glide freely, tall mountains to climb on, and a lot of space for the emerald shards to spread so that you can actually see what the stage is. My only problem with it is a small bit of layout issues. Unlike most stages from both games that are either heavy of the vertical layout or horizontal layout, Red Mountain is somewhat of a diagonal stage. It also has to do with where you start. You are here, which is in the middle of where you can clearly see a mountain to climb in front of you, but what isn't as obvious is the large amount of level behind you that's also beneath you. If the starting point was either at the top of the mountain or at the bottom of the stage, it would be a lot easier to digest your goal. This is also the first stage to have digging as a key mechanic, and it's not very easy to use in this game. In SA1, you have to come to this dead-ass stop, hold B, and then press A to use it. It's not a very intuitive design, but it's their first attempt and it's not really used that much. Even with those issues, I really love Red Mountain. It's easily the highlight of Knuckles' story in SA1. Fucking sucks that Chaos 4 is right after it. So now we're at the Sonic Adventure 1 stage known as Lost World, not to be confused with the video game Sonic Lost World. This is the only stage in the game to only have 2 playable characters instead of 3 like the rest of them. Although, you might as well just say this is exclusive to Sonic, because the playtime here for Knuckles is gonna be about a minute long. Like Casinopolis, this is a stage that acts as more of a complement to Sonic's run through the stage. When playing through the Knuckles section of Sonic, you have to use this gravity panel mechanic to get your goal because the room is vertical. Horizontally, this stage is pretty small. Unless you're a spin dash jump master like me here, you'll have to take the long way around this stage. With Knuckles, however, you can just naturally climb the walls and glide to the one on the other side with ease. Yeah, it makes the stage really quick to finish, but it shows just how different Sonic and Knuckles can be from each other. So I guess it has both the good and bad aspects of SA1's shared stages. Whoa! So I'm just going to go ahead and skip talking about Egg Carrier today. You're only here for like a minute and a half with Knuckles, so I don't feel the need to talk about it in this Knuckles-centric video. I guess my baseline opinion on it is I think it's really good for showing off Eggman's character, and if you're going to do all the discovering, you might as well do it as Tails. So I'm going to go against the herd and say that I really like Skydeck. First thing it does right is that it starts you at the high ground, where you have a clear view of the entire stage. This means that you don't need to spend any time learning the layout, but I'm going to place a little asterisk there because I've been playing this game for over 15 years, so maybe my opinion is a little bit wrong. So earlier I kind of mentioned Skydeck's weight distribution gimmick. At the very start of the stage, there's this little dildo you got to push on. If you push it forward, the ship goes forward. If you pull it back, ship goes back. Now what this does is that it opens up a few areas you can't find unless you distribute that weight. The problem is that when you do it, Knuckles just doesn't glide right, and it makes it a little bit unfun. So what you need to do here is do one full round of the whole stage. Then, whatever you couldn't pick up, go back to the stick, push it, and then get whatever you need. Pretty consistently when I play this stage, you don't need to push it more than once. Luckily, the stage is more of a medium-ish size, but it's still annoying when you have to do that. Overall, I like playing as Knuckles in SA1, but the ratio of action stages to everything else really hampers the experience, and the fact that the action stages themselves are either difficult to learn or less than a minute long are really harmful to the playthrough. It was a great first attempt to bring Knuckles into 3D, but there were definitely improvements to make.
It's your main man Knuckles, and we're at Meteor Herd. You ready to go in space? Help me get the emeralds.
Now, as we get into SA2, I want to make it really clear that I have a lot of nostalgia blindness for this game. I think it showed a little bit with SA1, but it's kind of like tripled for SA2, so I just want to get that out of the way. Now, how I went about this little play session for the video. So first I did Knuckles campaign in SA1, just the whole way start to front, like I've already gone over. Now with SA2, I decided to just go to the stage select and just do every stage with Knuckles and every stage with Rouge. I know that ignores the pacing issues that I stressed so heavily while talking about SA1, but I have two reasons for this. First is that SA2 brought back some of the arcadey elements of the Sonic series that SA1 was lacking. Score is back, we have multiple missions to get you to replay stages, we have a ranking system, which is the first and is going to be in every Sonic game after this one. And with those in the game, SA2 was very much designed with the idea you're going to be replaying these stages over and over and over again. Unlike SA1, which was more of an adventure game. My other reason for this is because what breaks the pace in SA2 is still high-octane stages that would have been considered the highlights of SA1. And even then, we all know the Sonic and Shadow stages are the best part in the game, so who gives a shit if I go from Security Hall to White Jungle? Also, last thing before I dig deep, I want to give a very quick shout out to the Flying Dog and King Boom Boom boss fights. I initially planned to leave bosses outside the realm of this video, but after remembering how much I hate the Chaos 4 boss fight in Sonic, fuck my phone! But after remembering how much I hate Chaos 4 in SA1, I wanted to give a quick mention to how these two fights make use of Knuckles and Rouge movesets creatively, such as Rouge climbing and then flying from her spot to hit the enemy, and Knuckles digging to bring out King Boom Boom. So, the first and most obvious change is the way Knuckles and Rouge control compared to SA1. Now this goes for Sonic and Shadow, but there's a much more accurate sense of the weight of the characters you're controlling, while SA1 had this very floaty control to them. I personally prefer the way SA2 feels, but I get a pretty even split on who prefers what when I discuss the subject, so I'm hesitant to label it as an objective improvement. What no one ever debates about is digging. So instead of being fucking stupid like in SA1, you can just jump in the air and hit B and you instantly dig into the floor. Knuckles' punches and Rouge's kicks have also been loosened so that you can attack without coming to a standstill, and you're still really fast during the whole thing. They've also got a new spinning uppercut that you'll probably only use during a few of the later missions. I know it may sound minor, but these improvements feel just as integral as Mario's long jump. I'd really like to say that this became the standard for Knuckles and Rouge gameplay, but the only 3D game besides Heroes were either were playable after this were Black Knight for Knuckles, which is on rails, and 06, which is a topic I'll more than likely never touch on to avoid redundancy. However, the next time Knuckles and Rouge are playable in a main series 3D game, I would be 800% okay with them just ripping the same physics and controls from SA2, but maybe with one extra button.
This is Knuckles.
Now let's get into the real improvement of SA2. The level design. As mentioned earlier, I think Red Mountain was peak stage design in SA1, but it also had some digestibility issues, which is where SA2 gets things extremely right. Now, first thing it takes from Red Mountain is how open you'll feel. Only 3 of the treasure hunting stages in SA2 are even indoors, and 2 of them consist of easy to learn hallways that repeat and let you see just how fast Rouge and Knuckles can run, while another is a water level that goes against the grain of the other 8 stages, so we'll get there later. One quick glance at Knuckles and Rouge's respective first stages, Wild Canyon and Dry Lagoon, immediately guides the player on how they should treat the stage and the treasure hunting gameplay in general. Immediately you'll notice in both stages that Knuckles and Rouge start in this small crevice that gives the player a full glance of the first half of the stage within seconds. The only parts the player can't see at this point are upwards, which is obviously designed to encourage them to climb upwards and get a feel for the climbing mechanic. But what the design of the stage encourages before anything else is this little centerpiece of each room that's as hard to ignore as your dad's coworker that seems to know you pretty well, but you don't remember him. What the fuck? In Wild Canyon, there's this big-ass AC unit that pushes you into the second half of the level. Now, once you're up here, you have 2 directions to go find an Emerald Shard, or you can go down by pressing B to use the new Drill Claw move, which is the most important thing they added that I ignored a second ago. Now, by this point, it's basically impossible to not know how to glide, because a player will more than likely frantically tap A to get out, and you'll know how to drill dive because there's a big old button in the top corner telling you to do so. Dry Lagoon works as a bit of a mirror. Instead of going up to find the second half of her stage, you go downwards into this old well. Although before that, there's an extra step where you have to kick the robots who are holding this turtle hostage, which was probably added so that the player would either learn about kicking or gliding. You can also just jump into them, but I'd imagine most players are going to do one of the former 2 actions. Don't judge me too much on that, because I haven't been a new player to SA2 since I was little, and I don't have someone to test it on, so I could be off on that. Dry Lagoon's second room is another mirror of Wild Canyon, but instead of flying high in the air, you get to swim downward into a pool. Dry Lagoon is also the only time Rouge swims in her stages besides this tiny dive right here. Not a real point to this design, just a little fun thing I noticed. Rouge and Knuckles' respective first stages do a great job of showing off the improvements SA2 made to the formula, and teaching players who skipped SA1 what to expect without hammering it into you. Now, Knuckles' second stage, Pumpkin Hill, is the height of level design for treasure hunting stages. Pumpkin Hill's greatest achievement is the freedom it gives you. Yeah, there is a boundary, but it's much further than any other stage, and it hides that point from the player by making it look like it goes on forever. And within our boundary, we'll find 3 tall-ass structures that all have easily memorable set pieces. You've got one with a train, another with a chapel, and one that's a graveyard slash circle slash pumpkin patch. The circle part is important because all of them have pumpkins and graveyards in it. Because splitting each stage into recognizable thirds is going to be a running thing with a lot of SA2 levels because the designers wanted to make sure that each stage was memorable. Knuckles' third stage is the water level I mentioned earlier. Now, the big thing about this is that your first run through the stage is going to be different than all your subsequent ones. So general SA2 thing, every stage has a power-up you can find in it. In Aquatic Mine, you can find a air necklace, which makes it so Knuckles can be underwater infinitely. So first time you do the stage, you really want to go grab that, because that makes the stage go from a hard bullshit level to, yeah, it's just a level in water. The main gimmick about this is that there's 3 different layers with a few different rooms in each, but you can change the water level on them. What you really want to do first is make the water as low as possible, then just run through the whole stage and see how many you can find. Sometimes if you get lucky, you can just do this little run here and you don't have to mess with the levels at all, while other times you might need to touch it one time. I think the biggest problem with this stage is that there's a few spots the emeralds can spawn that are kind of bullshit. I didn't get any footage of it today, but just take my word on it that there's a lot of bullshit spots it can go to.
This is Rouge. I've located Eggman's base and will proceed to enter it now. I hate to say it. I guess I'm going to have to find that key first.
Death Chamber and Egg Quarters. So both of these stages take place in Eggman's Pyramid, so I'm just going to make it another double feature. These stages also follow the structure of being separated in thirds, but this time it's 3 different colored rooms connected by hallways, plus a 4th middle room to each map. Egg Quarters is the more simple of the two. You run with Rouge through the 4 rooms, and you go in a simple circle once you reach the end. None of the rooms have more than 2 exits, so your only options are to go clockwise or counterclockwise. This design makes it so that you can do full sweeps of the stage in half a minute tops. The only difficult part in Egg Quarters is your first run when you need to get Rouge's drill ability from a puzzle, and these cameras will shoot you unless you find cover in the shade, so it gets kind of annoying when you do the puzzle. Death Chamber is similar to Egg Quarters, but with 2 big changes. One is that the middle room is exactly in the middle of the stage, and it has 3 exits to any of the colored rooms. I actually enjoy running through the center room a lot, but sometimes I accidentally go through the wrong door, but that's my B, I guess. Our second big change is the use of these hourglasses. They add more annoyance than challenge, and I feel like the only reason they're here is because they were introduced in Pyramid Cave, which came right before this one in the hero story. For that reason I like Egg Quarters a little more, but it's pretty close all things considered. I technically have 3 stages left, but I feel like if I went into those I might start sounding a little bit redundant. So I'm going to skip them for as far as today is concerned. Knowing me, I'm probably going to want to talk about SA2 again in the future. But, I've really just wanted to talk about Knuckles in the 3D games for a while now, because he's one of those characters I feel they got so right in SA2. But then they never really tried again besides 06. Heroes in Black Knight notwithstanding. I'm really hoping that the next 3D Sonic game has Tails and Knuckles playable. I think Rouge is pretty stuck in the background now, but I bet they could throw Shadow in too, since he'd be a Sonic clone anyways. But I think that would be a topic for another day. Hey guys, thanks for watching. This one took a little bit longer than I meant to. I know I said that about Persona, but my capture card broke, and then I started working on another video, and then I hit just the worst fucking writer's block you would not believe for that one, so I totally scrapped it. This has been one I've been thinking about for a while. I don't want to make this end slate go too long because I learned how YouTube does their end slates now, and I fucking hate that. So just click on whatever I have up here. Cool, Gucci, have a good one.